Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
All right, Sheri Strydhorst with Alberta Agriculture. We are at the 8th Canadian Workshop on Fusarium Head Blight / Canadian Wheat Symposium. It's been a big week here in Ottawa. Very busy. People have been here all week, and you can tell because they've all lost their voices. Anyway, but you just presented on a really fascinating concept that obviously is not a new one, but we're actually getting somewhere with some data on this idea of actually managing wheat varieties based on varieties, so managing inputs based on varieties.
Absolutely.
So tell me about this research project.
Okay, so I guess part of the goal is just to see how we can optimize genetics. We have great genetics out there, but we are seeing that some need maybe some extra nitrogen, while some need a fungicide, but they might not need both. And if we can improve and only give varieties what they need, the social license story behind that is absolutely fantastic, because we just have that credibility of we're only using the input where we need it. And I equate it to how you would raise your kids. If my kid isn't hungry, I'm not going to give them extra food. If my kid's not sick, I'm not going to give them extra medicine. But if they do need it, I'm going to give it to them.
Absolutely. So now there's also a profitability component to
Absolutely.
this. So how significant, let's say fungicide, for example, how significant was the response to fungicide between varieties that you looked at?
Absolutely. So with the fungicide that I'm using in the trial, I'm using a product that would control FHB, and at the cost of that with application, $26 per acre. So FHB, I should say, and leaf protection that we're getting. So if a grower doesn't have to spend $26 per acre because they have genetic resistance to the diseases that are out there, then they can save that, and that's just money in their pocketbook, and they're not spending that money but still getting the same yields.
Now you did look at some specific varieties, but we're going to talk in generalities. You did find one variety very thrifty in that you could throw all sorts of stuff at it, but you probably didn't need to.
Absolutely. So we kind of do an all or nothing management practice and contrast those two. So all the extra management that we give with a plant growth regulator nitrogen duo fungicide is costing $93 per acre. And with some particular varieties, we're seeing no yield response over 12 site years of study. And if you can save $93 per acre and still get the same yields and same quality, that is gold for growers. And that's really optimizing genetics. Whereas you have another variety that really is pushing yield and needs that extra nitrogen, you give it that $25 per acre of nitrogen and you get the yield response. And it's really about focusing inputs where the varieties are going to respond to them.
And how, now obviously we're talking about different varieties, so they're going to come from different companies, but really the key is where sort of the genetic makeup comes from originally. So how important is it to sort of know whether it's older versus newer versus where it came from?
So let's address the old versus new. And when varieties come out, they have disease resistance that is relevant to the diseases at the time. If you have a cultivar that's 20 years old, the diseases have changed, they've evolved, and the genetic resistance that you had 20 years ago isn't relevant today. And then a cultivar like that, you would need a fungicide to get some of the benefits. And whereas a cultivar that just is newly released, it has the relevance for the pathogens that are out there today and has that genetics, so you don't need the fungicide in that particular example. The other example is we might have varieties coming out of UK breeding programs versus Canadian ones, and they're responding very differently. We're seeing, for example, to nitrogen, that really high yielding variety out of the UK might be a little more nitrogen hungry, and to maximize its yield potential, we need that extra nitrogen.
So how do you envision it? So for me, thinking this through, this is critical information,
Absolutely.
really, that farmers should have.
Yeah.
Obviously for their area, for their management style, sort of at least some sort of, is it an N hungry, is it an absolute fungicide need, those sorts of things. where do you envision sort of this sort of information going?
So my hope is for next steps is to actually take varieties as they're coming out of PGDC, newly being registered, seeds being multiplied. We do our crystal ball and try to pick what is going to be big acres, and if we can do the research so that by the time seed is commercially available for growers to be putting into large acres, they buy their certified seed, and with it they get this information of this variety needs the fungicide, this variety needs the extra nitrogen, so they can optimize that use when they get the new genetics in their hands.
All right. If only children came with such a manual.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much, Sheri.
Thanks so much. Bye.